experiences, but
I just already
Patty's birthday.
I know, I saw her. Give her a hug in the parking lot.
She was here.
So you got her a picnic basket?
I did.
I was like, so I'm like,
picnic basket and a picnic tray, so we can go out this evening to the beach, and we'll have our right. Are we in the green room as I describe my wife's birthday plans for the day? And I'm a horrible planner. Welcome to the green room, everybody. Right. Wow. So we got
another.
No, we're gonna try to elevate today.
Yes,
listen,
today we're gonna have a good day today.
Well, listen, we have Carlos Smith in today, and who
and he's a fighter.
I always go the wrong way. and no, we need the passion of Carlos this morning because it's been a rough week. We were talking before coming on about why there's such a kind of a pall right now, at least. I know in your emotional world and mine, Ruta, we're facing this Roe v. Wade assault. Carlos, of course, will well extol what went on in the Florida legislature. We all know about the culture wars that were going on there.
Oh my God, did you see the article yesterday? Speaking of that, and Pineview, did you see they're censoring the kid?
Right.
Graduation speech,
right.
Because he mentions LGBTQ in the Don't Say Gay bill.
Right.
They censored him.
No, we know where we're at in Sarasota County.
They're censoring kids on speech. Are you joking?
And these are the brightest. These are the brightest.
Red flag in back
and these are the brightest of the brightest. In Pineview and your valedictorian.
They are.
That's my point.
Getting shut down.
And we'll engage Carlos on this when he gets on, but. To me, and it's Carlos's generation and younger, and that's why I'm so enthused about having Carlos on, because the path to victory for the progressive agenda and fighting off all this nonsense, is there. It's there. It's energizing the youth. It's energizing the youth to let them know if they don't pay attention now and get off their complacent asses, that they're going to lose this country. And then how can I, as a soon to be 66. No, how can we let that happen, Ruta?
No,
seriously. Honestly, and people say, why do you do what you do? And why are you passionate? Why did you drive an hour and a half up to Dunedin on Tuesday to stand with Nikki Fried and Michelle Rayner to speak for the rights of women to make their own healthcare choices? Because it's not yesterday's agenda or tomorrow's agenda. It's today's agenda.
And the problem is, I think this is the only other thing, and not to bash millennials and the youth here, but the problem is they've never lived in a time where they didn't have these rights. And you know what? People already did what we had to do. We're doing again, which is the protest and mobilizing.
But here's the point.
Because those rights are being stripped away.
Well, it is. But I think I understand the complacency. And it comes from a vision of liars at the leading levels of our government.
And both sides. I'm sorry.
It is both sides. It is. Let's go there. But listen, you can't have Lindsey Graham and all that. Well, Ted
Cruz is on a whole other level. Ted Cruz puts himself in a different.
No, and I heard Tom Cotton this morning, calling out to arrest the peaceful protesters that are marching around the block in Judge Kavanaugh's neighborhood. That's not what we do in this country. How much? Well, no. Fortunately, some Republican senators called Cotton out.
But you can storm the Capitol.
Listen, Ted Cruz. I don't know what he's taking.
Peaceful marches. Let's arrest.
Listen, they don't have cannabis in Texas. We know that.
They need it.
Oh no, my point is, I don't know what they have Ted Cruz on. But seriously, but I think that just so turns off our younger generation.
It does.
Who we've tried to instill certain things in them that are important and necessary to survive in society. One of which is to be honest, as honest as you can, and to have integrity, and to operate as you would want to have operated on you.
Have a moral compass.
Have a moral compass.
That's it. Just have a moral compass.
And I just don't understand how the acceptance of even the Republican base. Don't you just look at these leaders now and say, how freaking stupid can you be to make these comments when you know they're being taped? Yeah. Don't you know that we've seen what you said about Trump, let's call it out, in the past?
But they're playing the Russian communist
playbook.
Deny it. Oh, but that's on TV. made up. It's fake.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's all fake.
Yeah,
And they're playing out of the Russian playbook. And I'm like, which is craziness. Is Carlos on?
Awesome. But listen, but that's why we can't let 2022 society overcome what we know to be true. Carlos, how are you? Boy, do we need you this morning.
Every day.
That's true.
Hey, how are you all doing? It is great to be in the green room this morning. I'm joining you from Orlando, and it's good to be with you both.
Well, thank you. And thank you for fighting the fight you fight in Tallahassee. God bless you, because we need your voice like amplified, and we need like a million of you.
Well, for sure. And listen, for
really
some of our
Thank
international
you.
viewers and everything,
Yeah,
Carlos
really
Smith.
Yeah,
and
because we have
listen,
national listeners.
for sure. And if I may, I will call you friend, and you know, but
You are a friend, Dr. Barry.
Thank you so much. But it's so meaningful to have your voice here in Florida as the progressive champion for my 6 years of observation here in Florida. When I moved to Florida, Carlos, was right when you entered the legislature, right? And listen, it's so important. The reason I wanted to make sure we had Carlos on today, and I want you to explain it early and late, that you're running again, of course, for your 4th term. You'll be termed out this year. I know we have some plans maybe for the future, but we got to focus on the present. You're at risk. And we need to make sure that everybody knows that Carlos needs support, or we're going to lose him up there as the voice for cannabis, of course, for every other progressive issue that anybody can imagine here in the state of Florida.
Voice of normalcy and sanity.
Well, we were just talking about Carlos.
There are sane people who live in Florida.
No, listen, it's the lying. It's the lying right now.
And stripping away of rights. I mean, how many rights can be taken away? How much like suppression can there be? I mean, now it's, you know,
and Carlos, when you cried on the floor of the legislature, I cried with you this year. Would you please explain what the heck it is that you went through up there this year?
It's been rough, and thank you, Ruta. Thank you, Dr. Barry, for having me on, and just kind of having a discussion this morning. This past legislative session was just absolutely horrific for everyday Floridians. I mean, we saw the trampling of our rights and our freedoms, whether it was Don't Say Gay, these baseless attacks against LGBTQ people, or whether it was what I like to call the Stop Learning Act, which really prohibits honest teaching of history in our schools. That's House Bill 7.
Carlos probably doesn't even know about the Sarasota story this morning. Have you heard about the valedictorian at
No, I've not heard this story yet.
Okay, so Pineview High School is it's a school for gifted children. And usually, they're all bright. They think outside the box. These kids go on to great careers, the best of the best. Their valedictorian was censored. They had to take his speech, and they said he couldn't give it because he mentioned the Don't Say Gay bill and LGBTQ issues, and they took it away from him, and they said he cannot give the speech at Pineview.
See, there you go. No, what's happening? That's terrible to hear. What's happening to this student, this valedictorian? We saw this in Seminole County, right here in my area, with the cover up of the school yearbook that included photos of Don't Say Gay protests, which was reversed to the credit of the Seminole County School Board after public pressure. But what we're seeing Ron DeSantis's censorship agenda now in practice. This type of erasure of LGBTQ visibility and identity, whether it be through valedictorian speeches or inclusion in the classroom of LGBTQ families or discussions, or our existence in the school yearbook. This is exactly what opponents of the Don't Say Gay bill feared when we advocated against the bill. Of course, they said that we didn't read the bill. We read it several times. They called us pedophiles and groomers, which is the oldest anti-gay trope that exists out there. These are despicable attacks, and we're seeing it now actually in practice. But the good news is that organizations like Equality Florida and others have already banded together, filed a lawsuit against the Don't Say Gay law, the moment it was signed into law by Governor Ron DeSantis. And we already saw how he responded to all of this. We thought that the chapter had ended and we had moved on from that law and litigation will proceed. But the last time I was in Tallahassee, just a couple of weeks ago, we were there for a special legislative session where the governor and Republican lawmakers used the full power of the state to retaliate against Walt Disney World, who had the gall to speak out against this law and stand up for LGBTQ people. And I think the message here is that if the DeSantis regime used their power, abused their power to go after a international, multi-billion-dollar corporation like Disney, they will do it to you as well. They will so use their power to punish anyone who speaks out against their extreme agenda. And that should be frightening.
It is, and I'm glad you mentioned that because it is a regime, and I think people don't realize we're like 1 foot away with this DeSantis regime from being in a communist country, whether it's China or Russia, where you have censorship coming, you have burning of books, not teaching accurate history, banning of rights of anybody that they don't agree with, like and making laws against people, and it's frightening, and I wish like people really would wake up in this state because it is
the book banning. When have we ever engaged in book banning? What is it about these topics that is so dangerous that we have to censor and ban these books? I mean, it's nonsensical when we saw dozens of books that were banned, math books about statistics and trigonometry that they claim has CRT in it. It's nonsense.
So a question I'd be interested in hearing your answer to. Does it bother you more, and are you fearful more of Governor DeSantis himself or of the Republicans that just lockstep like a lemur going over the cliff, seem to go right along with every one of these harebrained schemes in spite of you knowing many of them personally and knowing that given a closed door, this, that, vote, does that bug you?
Of course. Well, I mean, what we have to understand about what we're seeing. Let's look at the congressional redistricting maps as an example. The Constitution of Florida specifically delegates the responsibility of redistricting to the legislature. That is now a responsibility that the Republican majority in the legislature essentially has now surrendered to the all-powerful Governor Ron DeSantis because he insisted on drawing his own maps and thwarting the legislative process and shredding the Constitution in doing so. How did he shred the Constitution? After we shirked our legislative responsibility to draw maps, is he drew congressional maps that eliminated Black representation in Florida. So we went from having 4 Black congressional districts that gave racial minorities the opportunity to elect the candidate of their choice to 2. 2 congressional districts were totally eliminated. And when I say that's a violation of the Constitution, I think when people hear both sides of politics, you hear the word unconstitutional very lazily thrown around, and it kind of has lost its meaning. Well, here's what the Constitution says. The Florida Constitution says that redistricting maps must be drawn in a way that does not hinder the ability of racial or language minorities to elect the candidate of their choice. That is exactly what has just happened. It also prohibits redistricting maps, legislative maps, from being drawn with partisan intent. This is actually one of the most belligerently partisan congressional maps in the country. And if you don't believe me, ask 538.com, who looks at these things. They are the experts on redistricting, on voting, on political maps, and they have identified Florida as basically the second most politically gerrymandered congressional map in the country. And that's why we saw the news yesterday which is that a Leon County judge, who is a Republican appointed judge,
did not know
struck down the maps, the congressional maps, as illegal and unconstitutional, because that's what they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, no. So what's the time frame? What happens if that doesn't get figured out, Carlos, before the elections? Do they just kind of stay under the old system as it is?
Well, this ultimately, the timing question of adopting new congressional maps in Florida on time may ultimately be fait accompli for the Republicans, because even if the map is unconstitutional, I worry that an appellate court may just say, hey, yeah, this is really illegal. However, we are so far in the timeline, this is way too late. We've passed the point of no return. Ballots need to be printed. Candidates need to be qualified for these races. And the supervisors of elections need to do their work to prepare for an election, even if it is with an illegal map, which, by the way, is what we did for 2 election cycles, I think, in the last go around, because the legislature passed unconstitutional maps that the court declared invalid, and took them 2 election cycles to finally adopt legal ones.
Do you have a sense of why the Republicans won't stand up for their power in the legislature to the governor, Carlos?
Well, they're afraid. They're afraid, Dr. Barry.
They're afraid. I got it.
What we're seeing is a political environment in Florida where all sides and all stakeholders in the political and public policy making process are afraid to challenge the governor for fear of retaliation. So you have individuals who are afraid that the governor will use his propaganda machine through his press secretary, who has been more than willing to use taxpayer money to tar, feather, and smear political opponents of Governor DeSantis. So you have individuals who are afraid. You have businesses and corporations who are afraid.
Disney, if somebody can go after Disney,
we were struck.
Takes big cojones.
We were struck, Carlos, and we talked about it in the green room a couple of weeks ago, that Dr. Ladapo, and I know you saw this, and the Department of Health sent out the recommendations to doctors about advising trans youth and this and that, and they wanted them to follow their recommendations, not the recommendations of the experts here in Florida that have been, are leading experts in the world, of course. But the thing is, they didn't reach out to them for any advice, just like they don't reach out to me on advice on cannabis policy. So it's so maddening to be in this state right now because of how things are trickling down with no science, no logic.
Well, what we've seen at the Florida Department of Health, particularly through the Surgeon General, Ladapo, is the politicization of the Florida Department of Health. The health experts are no longer in charge. Dr. Ladapo, if you want to call him that, he basically issued totally bogus guidance that is not scientifically based, that is not research, that is not based on data, that actually goes against the mainstream consensus of every medical provider association in the country on how to provide care for transgender youth. He's recommending not only against access to life-saving care for trans youth, but he's also advising against social transition of trans youth. The social transition being use the appropriate pronouns. Right. Let your trans child get the haircut of their choice. Let them wear the clothes of their choice. Let them use the restroom that corresponds to their gender identity. He's opposing the social transition in addition to access to life-saving care, which, by the way, can have deadly consequences, because on a more serious topic, because lives are at stake. Trans youth LGBT youth overall are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their peers. And unfortunately, in Florida, those statistics have gotten worse in the last couple of years, specifically based on information and data from the Florida Department of Education through their Youth Behavior Risk Survey, which collects this data, which they just announced 2 weeks ago that they will no longer be collecting after 31 years of data collection in partnership with the CDC. Florida no longer wants to have access to information about how our kids are doing. And I suspect the reason they don't want to know is because the data is showing that actually things are becoming worse for LGBTQ youth. And they don't want that to come to light, because certainly it's a result of the political environment that they have created of hostility, bullying, intimidation, and attacks against the LGBTQ youth.
It's a public health emergency in every way, shape, and form. We will lose trans kids. This is against the advice of the experts, and then it comes out from the Department of Health to doctors, and it's horrible, and I do liken it to women's health rights issues. Of course, Carlos, I was honored to stand with Nikki Fried and Michelle Rayner up in Dunedin on Tuesday. And I'll do it again. And listen, here's what I want to talk to you about, Carlos, because it's critical, and our green rooms go so fast. How do we energize? How we win is obvious. Yeah, because the vast majority of the people agree, with our side of the issues. We know that, but we need to be able to energize people to get off their complacent butts, or we're going to lose this country.
Let's just talk more generally. Dr. Barry, because the reality is that obviously the big news about the leaked Supreme Court ruling on Roe v. Wade is very dramatic news. This is sky is falling type decisions from the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, before we talk about what that means for other rights and other issues, because it certainly is going to result in consequences for other communities and other people, not just women. Let's just talk about what the falling of Roe v. Wade would mean for abortion rights in the United States. We have about 26 states in the US that have either what we call trigger laws, which would take effect the moment Roe v. Wade is no longer the law of the land, or they have full abortion bans that predate the decision of Roe 50 years ago. So in 26 states, if Roe falls, there will be zero access to abortion services whatsoever for women under any circumstances, period, end of story, including women who find themselves with an unintended pregnancy as a result of rape or incest. They will have no options whatsoever in 26 states, with the exception of carrying their pregnancy to term against their will, because government is requiring this of them. Now, for wealthier, mostly white women of means,
it won't matter.
They will still be able to access legal abortion services, safe and legal abortion services, because they have the means to travel to another state where abortion services are still legal. But for everyone else, this does not mean that they will not be seeking access to abortion services, but they won't have access to safe and legal abortion services. We will be reverting to a time in our country where women are taking matters into their own hands to control their own destinies and their own bodies, because access to safe and legal abortion is not available. Now, in Florida, we have what is called the privacy clause. The privacy clause has always been interpreted in our state constitution to protect abortion rights. But let's be clear, we now have a conservative Florida Supreme Court, and we have a governor who is more than willing to go to the right of the most far-right governors in the country, who he's competing with. And he will make a move to enact a full abortion ban in the state of Florida, which is why it's so important that people get out and vote this November, because our rights are not guaranteed. Even when you think they're guaranteed, they're not guaranteed. You have to fight for them. Even access to medical marijuana is not guaranteed, because if one night 30 million women in America can go to sleep knowing that access to abortion is their constitutional right, and then wake up the next morning, and not only is it no longer a right, but in some states it will be a crime that can put them behind bars. I think
some of these
anything
extremists,
is possible.
Carlos, are talking about taking women that go out of state to get legal, safe abortions, arresting them when they come back into the state.
Senator Marco Rubio is talking about punishing states or punishing employers who offer as a healthcare benefit resources to access abortion services if they don't live in a state where it's legal.
One of the points that I make, Carlos, it's so critical, is that you have to look at 2022 as 2022. There's Plan B, right? There's other chemical termination type of techniques. Things will be sent through the mail from other states into Florida, right? Also, on the other side, ultrasounds and genetic testing that wasn't available back in 73 when Roe v. Wade came to light is now available. So if you look at the life of a mother type of issue, or a blighted fetus at 5 months that now you can see by ultrasound literally has no brain, and the mom will have to carry this pregnancy for another 4 months.
Right.
Significant emotional. So the point is that technology and bioethics, okay, need to be in this discussion. Honestly, and it's not a political discussion.
For me, it's not even that. I'm sorry. It's your body. If you're a trans kid, it's your body. If it's a woman, it's her body. It's our bodies. Who has the right to tell anybody what to do with their bodies? I can't, to me, it's like not even comprehensible. I'm sorry. You want to be a trans kid, be a trans kid. Don't shut the door on them. Don't. You want to have an abortion because something's wrong. You're making that choice. Who is
to have rights taken away in 2022 is insane. It's criminal. It's going to kill people. And how do we energize people, Carlos? What do we do?
It's why we got to get out and vote. And when it comes to folks like myself, folks from the Democratic Party who have advocated since I was elected in 2016, for example, to fully legalize cannabis in the state of Florida and repeal the vertical integration requirement in our state and allow small businesses to actually be part of the legal cannabis industry in the state of Florida. That's what I've been fighting for. We've been fighting for our medical cannabis patients who often are priced out of the legal cannabis program because IDs are too expensive, access to healthcare providers to get their certification and their approval is too expensive, and the products are too expensive. We've advocated for making sure that we subsidize, especially for the most ill who might be Medicaid patients, which is why they need certainly access to this medicine because of their underlying medical condition. We have been fighting to get this housing affordability crisis under control. I mean, we have rents that are going 30, 40, 50% over last year with no controls and no stabilization whatsoever because state government and the DeSantis administration have decided that addressing the housing crisis is not their responsibility. Access to healthcare, our teachers in our schools, we have a dramatic crisis of shortage of teachers in our schools that needs to be addressed that is affecting our kids. Why do we have a teacher shortage? Well, because Florida is 48th in the nation in teacher pay, and Tallahassee politics and regulations and unfunded mandates and requirements are just asking more and more and more and putting more pressure on our teachers that they no longer want to be in the classroom because they have folks who are showing up at school board meetings making baseless accusations saying that teachers are trying to sexualize our kids or that schools are teaching critical race theory. They are not. These are lies made up by the extremists on the Republican side to scare and divide us.
Moms for America, whatever.
So I know they changed. I know they changed your district, Carlos. So before we get out of the green room, let's talk about what you're up against. And
sure.
And make sure that we let everybody know how to donate to Carlos's campaign.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. Well, you can go to carlosguillermosmith.com. if you want to support my reelection campaign, I have represented East Orange County for the last 6 years in the Florida House. And now I'm running to represent still East Orange County, but also part of East Seminole County, which includes Oviedo, Chiliota, and part of Winter Springs. And this is going to be, very competitive race. I have for 6 years represented what I would call a safe blue Democratic district, but now it's a very purple swing district. And we know that the Republican attacks against me are coming. Last week, the Republican Party of Florida made a single $25,000 contribution to my opponent to really send the message that they are coming for me and that they want to unseat one of the most vocal and effective critics of their extreme agenda. That's me. So I'm just asking folks to have my back and help us beat back against these attacks. You can make a donation to my reelection campaign at carlosguillermosmith.com. You can follow me on social media at Carlos G. Smith on most of my handles and see the work that we're doing and see how you can get involved, because we really need as much support as we can get this cycle.
Yeah, I really think, Carlos, it's going to come down to personalities. I think in this crazy, superficial society that we're in, we got to get our athletes. We got to get our actors and actresses, our musicians. I really think that's where you inspire the youth. Ruta was talking about a friend of hers that has 1.7 million followers, right, on social media, who Maserati gave him a Maserati because they want those 1.7 million eyes on him.
But we need those
that's
eyes
what we
to
need.
go vote.
We need those. We need that
exactly right
impact.
Yeah.
And we love
exactly
you, Carlos.
Right. No, the youth is motivated. The youth is motivated. What are they motivated by? Well, they're motivated by making sure that their classrooms and their communities are safe from gun violence. That's certainly the Parkland generation that's very engaged in this election cycle. They're energized in solidarity with their LGBTQ students and colleagues, and the walkouts that happen after Don't Say Gay. They want to make sure that LGBT people are treated fairly and equally under the law. They're motivated by the very real threat of there being a full abortion ban in the state of Florida, where women will no longer be able to make their own decisions and have control over their own destiny. These are really important issues that are going to be motivating young people and others to stay engaged and vote in this election cycle.
We need to organize them. And one of the great things that I saw was Michelle Rayner and Nikki campaigning together, because I think that's one of the things that we lacked in the last general election in Florida with, Andrew Gillum. I don't think really he ever reached out as a Democratic community, so to speak, to run. I don't want to put you on the spot, Carlos. Are you ready to talk about gubernatorial endorsements yet? Because, listen, August is coming up. And it's coming up faster than we think. And I think ultimately we're going to have to coalesce, and you know where I stand. But I'm not asking you today if you're ready. We would love to have that announcement in the green room. Who it ultimately is you're going to throw your support behind. But we got to get DeSantis out of there, and the sooner we rally behind one candidate. So how do you see that coming down over the next couple weeks, couple months?
Right. Well, there's rumors about shifting the gubernatorial side, like the gubernatorial race on the Democratic side. I don't know ultimately what's going to happen, but to your point, I mean, I haven't made an endorsement. We need the person who will be the strongest candidate against Governor Ron DeSantis. And if the strongest candidate is a bologna sandwich, I support the bologna sandwich, because at this point, we are in a situation where Florida is no longer a free state as they claim it is. It's freedom for some. It is an autocracy where folks are afraid to speak out. They're afraid to stand up for their rights because of fear of a retaliation from an extreme government, an extreme regime that is censoring them, that is taking away their rights, that is using the power of the state to go after critics. And these are kind of dark times that we're living in. We need someone who's in the best position possible to unseat Governor Ron DeSantis before he accumulates and consolidates so much power that he does even more damage.
That's the scary part, is like, what happens should he win re-election? Like, you have to think.
Well, Don said he was getting his passport over the next couple of days. No, it's scary. And listen, I tell everybody, I'm a born and bred Ohioan. I'm going into the grave with my 216 and my Browns gear. It's hard to say you're a proud Floridian, But one of the things I am proud about being in Florida.
I'm a proud Floridian. I
know you are, and I'm heading there. Hang on, I'm heading there. One of the things I am proud about is, once again, knowing that we do have leaders like you up there that are fighting for us, you know, and I'd love to spend the rest of my life here as a proud Floridian, fighting with you.
That's right. That's right.
Fighting with you for what we all need. So
what's happening in our state does not reflect the values of everyday Floridians. This is an extreme agenda that is being imposed on us by people who claim that they know what's best. And we can fight back and take back our state in this next election cycle.
I will say this to you, Carlos, your endorsement will be a very important endorsement. And I mean that with all due respect. So I'm eagerly awaiting it. And you know, you're not going to be the only one. People are going to have to pick sides, even on the Democratic, you know, side, to that extent. And because I don't think either of the, and three, listen, I love, you know, Senator Tadeo also, you know, all three of the major candidates.
Love her. I love all of them.
I do.
Well,
I
folks,
do.
I'm going to have to jump really soon.
All
this
right,
has
Carlos,
really been awesome. This has been great to be on the Green Room. It's great to chat with you. I'd love to come back sometime soon.
Maybe you'll come back to give us that endorsement in the Green Room. That would be a great thing. No, listen, Carlos, great to see you. Best of Jared. Stay strong, stay healthy. We'll see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks for everything. Yep.
And for listeners, we have a big event this Saturday for Ukraine. So it's at 2821 Cattleman Road at Sarah Dance. Starts at 7 p.m. It's a fundraiser for Ukraine. All money will go to Ukraine. It's going to be a fun event. We have Ukrainian homemade cooking.
I will be there, but I will not be dancing.
And there's dancing and there's music.
It's going to be great. Listen, it's a way of it's a way of showing your support for Ukraine, which I know a lot of us feel that we want to do, and a great way to come out and just have a good time. And you know, downtown Sarasota is a great place to do that.
And then next Thursday, Dr. Barry's doing the Green Room, and then he's heading away for a really great trip.
Right.
So we'll probably continue the Green Room, and I kind of have some ideas that we'll probably
special guests.
We'll do special guests, and I think we might do some things with the staff. So I think, you know, tell them. We can describe like our practice, and I think like each person.
Yeah, get back into cannabis a little bit. We've been so politically charged, but we have to be.
We have to be, but I'm so angry that I can't.
I hope Carlos doesn't get mad at me for trying to, force me. Yeah, I know. But his endorsement will be important.
Yeah,
it will be.
I know. I understand.
Well, he needs to at some point. They all need to at some point. That's the point. August. Listen, I'm the one that's living the 4-day-a-week lifestyle now because Friday's off and everything. But time goes fast, and it's May. I'm telling you. It's going to be June, July, and then it's going to be that.
They're getting ready for primaries already. That's the doors closed.
So everybody go out and get energized and support somebody. Okay, that's the important thing.
Take a friend to register to vote. Everybody
Stay
have a
healthy and
great
safe.
weekend. See you Saturday.